Hey everybody, and welcome back to Digital Doc Games, where we explore how games help us grow, connect, and heal. Today we are joined by Drew Walker, the founder of the Streetlight Gaming League, a gaming league and peer support program for adolescents and young adults who are being treated for a variety of diseases like cancer, sickle cell, and cystic fibrosis. Drew, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Matt. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. I'm happy you were able to make a break in your busy class schedule to talk. I know you're getting your PhD.
One day at a time.
That's right. So we expect only direct, great words of wisdom straight from your textbooks and studies.
Yeah, I'll try to keep track of the references. I'll just do in-text citations.
That's right. Keep it all AP style here. Drew, what are you getting your PhD in?
So it's in Behavioral, Social, and Health Education Sciences, which is a department of the Rollins School of Public Health at Emory University. So a lot of the interplay between psychosocial, like behavioral health outcomes, and why people make the decisions they make, what goes into people's thought processes, and how we can craft interventions to promote health and well-being in the overall population.
So that's really awesome. And I'm really excited to hear about kind of how your path lines up with Streetlight and what you guys do at Streetlight. So we are going to get into all of that. Before we get going, some quick housekeeping. This Friday, October 16th at 2 p.m. EST, I'll be joining the Good for Gaming group and streaming live on twitch.tv/digitaldocgames, where I will be supporting Stack Up, a military charity using the power of games to foster positive mental health. But that is future talk. Let's talk about present talk. So Drew, can you tell me a little bit about Streetlight? Just a top level down, what is Streetlight?
Sure. So Streetlight is a hospital volunteering program located at UF Shands Hospital in Gainesville, Florida. And Streetlight is all about trying to provide peer support through using college-age volunteers to patients age like 13 to maybe like 30 years old, around there. There's kind of a soft cutoff, who just have to be admitted most frequently into the hospital. Mm-hmm. And in these hospital stays, typically that is associated with interruptions in their social life and in academics and just whatever they have going on. And especially in patients who have these really long hospital stays or just sudden interruptions, that can really have a lasting effect, and it can definitely isolate you. And so Streetlight aims to kind of get at that and provide you, like when you go to the hospital, you have like a community of people that kind of have your back, that you can talk to, you can spend time with. And our volunteers try to offer up a bunch of different activities they can do in the hospital. So like whether that's renting out movies or video games or hosting events in our teen lounge, or getting them involved with the Streetlight Gaming League, just like making arts and crafts. Or sometimes it's just like watching crappy daytime TV and hanging out, or just being wherever that patient's at. And a lot of what Streetlight does is to try to just connect volunteers organically based on like interest or on similar experiences.
Wow.
We have a lot of volunteers that work for the program who have had their own illness experience, whether that be something like cancer or sickle cell, or different autoimmune diseases as well, or different GI diseases. And that can be huge too when, it's like immeasurable to have that when you're in the moment. You're like, oh my gosh, I just got diagnosed with Crohn's. Like, what does that mean for my life? For someone who's like 3 years older, like, and is killing it in college, to come and be like, yeah, that was me, like, 3 years ago.
Right.
And to show that there's it's possible to cope with this, it just means a lot for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, it's so much easier to connect with somebody when they have a shared experience with you. I think, actually, interestingly enough, I think I'm even seeing that now to be more true than ever. I think one of the things, just, already jumping into video games a little bit, that I've seen is, games kind of give you the power to have a shared experience as close as you can get without actually having that experience. And that's a really interesting way to connect with people and empathize with people. But certainly, going through something like that, living with sickle cell and taking that and turning that around to, help people who are struggling, that's such a cool opportunity. So it sounds like a great thing. How did you end up at Streetlight? How did you end up starting out there?
I had a pretty lengthy hospitalization my junior year of high school after my appendix had ruptured, and I had like waited to get it checked out, and it had like resulted in sepsis. And I remember just how isolating that was, and how radically it changes your identity from like swim team athlete, like someone who loves to go surfing and is good at school, to like you're a patient who is not able to like pass feces today, or like needs, you're just answering questions that are so medically based, and it definitely changes how you're seen. And I remember just how amazing it was to have a friend support group that would come by and be like, dude, you want us to sneak in? BioShock 2 just came out. I can bring it in. I got the Xbox 360 in my car.
Right.
And like, and they'd come in or like tell me like, whatever stuff was going on at school and things like that. And that was definitely a huge like buoy for me for that time. And so right away I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I want to do that. And
wow,
it's pretty like difficult to get into Streetlight. It's very like there's the application and interviews, and
really?
there's a lot of people apply for it. So I was really, really grateful they accepted me. I think something in my interview stuck out. I had said for fluent languages, I was fluent in joke voices. And just like when I'm going into a robot for like a part of it. So
oh my God.
wow. Just think I was crazy, dude.
When you get to the point in the interview where you're doing robot talk, you've either made it or just botched it.
Yeah, I was like, this could go bad.
That's right.
But they took a chance, and it was really early on into me being in Streetlight where one of the first like roles that you take as you're learning, no one wants to do this, but it's called being a Grinch. And you're basically going around like patient to patient room, and you're checking to make sure like what their discharge date is. So if they're like leaving soon, that means you have to Grinch and like go and grab all the like inventory we gave them, which is usually stuff that's like really helping them get through. Like, some of our patients call their games the pain management system that they use most often when they go in the hospital, and
that's
the one that's most reliable for them. And that can be really like, you're taking this away from someone who's in the hospital and stuff. But for me, it was really good because I had a list of like what kind of games or movies I know they like or that they wanted to check out. And so you already go in having something to talk about. And so a lot of it was just like talking about gaming, and then it would grow to like connecting through like, oh, we add each other on World of Warcraft or on Steam or something. And that led to being able to keep up those relationships while patients were in and out of the hospital. Or
so what is Gaming League? Because that's something that is within Streetlight but separate than the greater Streetlight.
Right. So Gaming League is basically a virtual community. It takes place mostly on a Discord server. So any patient who comes into Streetlight, on our brochure, there's a little blurb about it, and they can get invited to the Gaming League if they want to. And it's only made up of Streetlight staff, volunteers, and patients, with the purpose of creating a supportive, positive community for people with shared experiences to meet, to game together, and to just connect in any way that's meaningful to them.
In your experience launching the Gaming League, how have you seen it have an impact? What is this Gaming League doing? I mean, it sounds like certainly it's giving a continuity of care. It's allowing, community support, peer-to-peer support. But what have you seen the gaming doing?
So I think this kind of I started to kind of like catch on to this. One, it was like that shared language was definitely really interesting to me at first as I'd connect with patients on a lot of gaming stuff. But the medium of gaming, I saw early on, like there's a patient I hung out with a ton in my first year of volunteering, and really throughout my experience in Streetlight. And he was the first person I had like exchanged information with to where we could play on like, there's like an MMO called like Walk Fu, was on Steam for a while. I don't know if it's still around anymore, honestly. Or different games like that. I remember being in the game with them, and I was kind of customizing my character. We had like a little bit of downtime before the next fight, and he's like, "Oh, did you see the DLC that was available?" And there was this cool. He's like, "Yeah, check out the different skins. Which one's your favorite?" And I was like, "Oh, the ninja one's so cool." And
yeah,
a couple of minutes later, he like traded it to me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so nice, man. You don't have to do that." And he was like, "This is like the smallest thing I can do for like all the times you've been there for me, like the hardest times of my life, and like this, of course, it's really nothing." And that like reduced me to like a puddle. Honestly, I was like so floored by like just that it was a way for one, like in that role, there was no like delineation of volunteer or patient. It was just two
Right.
people gaming. This guy really did not have a lot of resources in real life, and so that opportunity to like use your skills, use your resources that you've amassed in the game to like empower other players, regardless of who you are. I thought that was a really beautiful thing
Yeah,
about gaming.
absolutely.
I also saw how, for that player specifically, of how gaming really facilitated being able to experiment in different roles. Like a lot of the characters he played were female, and that became a way for me to understand how a lot of times he felt better identifying as female, and how that games allowed him to explore that space and that side of him,
Right.
which I
Interesting.
thought was really, really interesting as
Yeah, I
well.
mean, it allows you to explore new perspectives, right? I mean, in ways that nothing else can. So that's real. I mean, that's really interesting for someone who is identifying as a different gender to be able to experience that and live without question in that way.
And even the feeling of like embodying mastery over something, which you definitely lose in the hospital, right? Because you're so dependent on others. You can't do any of the stuff you could do before. We had a patient who had very severe brain tumors who we supported through end of life with. And the last couple months, I would just go in and play Call of Duty Black Ops 3 every day, like zombies. It was like zombies arcade, zombies. At the time, we could like never make it past round 7, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. But we did it eventually. But in the last week of his life, it was literally like, I want my Streetlight friends in here just like playing Call of Duty with me, and he'd
wow,
be playing and like we'd be joking around laughing, and like just on the pain meds and stuff, he'd go out and then come back in and we'd be like, hey, do you want us to let you sleep? Like we can definitely let you rest, man. And he was like, no, just like cover me when I go down and wake me up, because this is what I want to be doing. And
right.
that's how he spent the last waking moments of his life doing that. And when I think about what would have happened without it, it would have been such hyper focused on the medical environment, the apparatus that was all around him, the different tubes, the lines, the beeping, all the stress. And seeing games as a way to pull people out of that was incredibly powerful too.
Wow.
And it was just like collections of these experiences over the hundreds of patients that I would meet, or that I would read and hear about, our volunteers meeting and what they would do. So I was like, this really needs to be a place where like everyone can connect over this. It doesn't have to just be like us and this one patient experiencing this and then us another, because all these players have a lot to offer each other too. So I thought it was
Wow.
the community was a way to like bring all that together. And
It's amazing. There's certain times when I'm in the middle of an interview and I hear someone say something, just like you did, or, just something so powerful. And it just makes me realize, if all this work for creating this channel, if just one person hears what you just said, I mean, it's so true. And I know it from working at the hospital. And, what does isolation in the medical environment do to a patient? And, we try as medical professionals to mitigate that as much as possible. But at the end of the day, as a doctor or, as a nurse or whatever, you're still, you have a job to do. And, you can try as much as you can to go and sit down and relate with the patient and talk to them. But after about 15 minutes or, however long you can stretch it, you got to get up and move and see the next patient or go back
yeah,
and, put in the orders or whatever it is. And that always really was hard for me as a medical student, because I wanted to be doing what you were doing. I want, in the hospitals that I worked at, the Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., we didn't have like the most state-of-the-art game systems, but we had Wii's and some 360s with some older games. And occasionally there'd be a kid playing, or maybe they brought in their own console or were playing Fortnite on their phone or something. Like all I wanted to do was just sit with them and play. And it's not because I just wanted to play video games during work. It's because exactly what you're saying, like that's how you connect and you
yeah.
work together. And that has such a huge impact on it's not just about treating the patient with medicine. It's about treating the patient and the patient's mind and their soul. And, so you're just as much a part of the care team as the doctors and the nurses in that regard. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and we were very much kind of integrated within the care team. So for different departments, like for hematology oncology or the pediatric ICU, or for like pulmonology, we would regularly meet with like social workers and doctors, nurses, psychologists, chaplains, and like OT, PT as well. And in these kind of sessions, we'd be able to hear the medical information that we'd be able to make decisions on, like, oh, this is a patient we really need to prioritize. They're going through a lot right now. Or this is a heads up we need to give to our volunteers. This patient's not able to see right now, so we need to adjust how we, interact with them. But we can provide some of that more like humanistic approaches. Like, yeah, we talked to him at length about how he's always wanted to do this. And, do we think we can make this happen? He's always wanted to go to Japan. Can we make a cool, like Japanese, like theme night where we can like bring staff in? And our role a lot of times was kind of like, connecting that or bringing up things that the healthcare team might be able to then use in their conversations, or, to be able to stop by like for a few minutes during the party just to be a part of that experience. So I think it was really cool to be able to see like the whole team kind of be able to use that information too.
And was there a criteria for who was able to be a part of Streetlight? Did you have to have a chronic illness or?
So so it's typically like the focus of the program is on patients who have been either admitted and seen by Streetlight 3 times or more, which should be like frequent flyer, like designated palliative patients in our system, or patients with those mean disease populations, like cancer patients. We would definitely see cystic fibrosis, transplant, sickle cell, if they were in like developmentally a range of like 13 to 30, and if they're interested in Streetlight, we could see them. But we would also go, our volunteers actually introduce the program to patients. We have a census of about like 30 people a day. And so they would go like on the pediatric unit, they'll see all the teenagers that day, as long as there's no like contraindications or reasons why they can't have visitors. And of course, this was all pre-COVID. Right now it's functioning with 2 full-time staff and then 2 part-time who are now doing the patient visiting more, like they're doing more of a focus on like actually visiting instead of facilitating the volunteers and like guiding them on who to visit and stuff like that. So it's still managing, and certainly not to go off on a tangent, but Gaming League has been a really incredible way to keep that community alive throughout all of the COVID stuff, because I mean, it's just been totally different for these patients without the volunteer team being here.
Wow, that's right. Yeah, that's an incredible way to connect to these patients at home, or even if they're back in the hospital, they can still have their phones, they can still be on Discord.
Yeah, and something in creating the Gaming League too that we realized early on was that like those social issues that happen as being physically isolated from the hospital don't really end at discharge. Those patients are going home and they've missed like 3 weeks of school for the like maybe 3rd or 4th time in the past couple of years, just as an example. And those like friendships back at school might not be as strong anymore. And we'd have things where like we'd hear from patients and they're just at lunch trying to find a place to eat and stuff. And having that ongoing community to like constantly go back to, where it's like, these are my people, they know my story, they get it, they see me for me, I think is, even if it's just a virtual context, is extremely powerful.
It's interesting. It makes me think, my first like real experience, I would say, like connecting with a community in a game was when The Division came out. So The Division was like, because I played MMOs growing up on the computer and all things like that, but I never really met anyone that I continued to party up with. I had my friends in real life that had the games, but The Division, like none of my friends were playing it, and none of my friends really do online gaming. So I went into the war zone this one time. The war zone is this area where you team up with other players and you go and try and get loot, and you have to watch out. You could also get attacked by other players. And I was this low-level soldier, and I was teamed up, I guess, one way or the other with a higher-level guy who I think was, like keeping himself off from the top level so he could still be in the lower-level area. And he just took me under his wing and just walked me through like everything, got me the best gear. And he was so nice. My wife was, or we were, she's my fiance at the time. I was joking. I'm like, I'm going to invite him to our wedding.
Oh my God.
She's like, no, don't invite your soldier online. No. But my point is that you can take what you guys are doing at Streetlight, and anyone can take those values and do it in their own gaming life, or non-gaming too. But as far as gaming goes, if you're playing with someone, I think we all have the tendency, if you get matched up on Call of Duty or something, and it's kind of a kid with a high nasally voice or something, maybe we want to mute them. I've certainly done it before. But before jumping to that, you can actually, what's this kid doing, right? Like, how is his friend life going? You can make connections with people, even if it's just for one time, and maybe actually have an impact on someone's life that is miles and miles away, and maybe you'll never see again. But I'll always remember that guy from the division. He probably doesn't remember me, but I'll always remember he was super cool.
I love that. Yeah, those chance encounters, it is definitely worth, like, I've thought of that a lot too, because I'll definitely get heated when I just keep getting like destroyed by this group, and you just develop this like, this really negative attitude towards this person, but realistically, like, y'all probably have a lot in common.
Yeah.
And you spend time playing the same game, and
right. I did an interview with Dr. Kent Norman. You can check it out after you're done watching this interview, of course. But Dr. Norman was a professor at University of Maryland, where he taught the course, The Psychology of Video Games. And he said that his main lesson that he wanted every student to take away was that the game, I just love this quote, the game doesn't stay in the game, it comes out and it stays with you. So, I think that's now when I'm playing games, I try to keep that in mind. What am I going to take away when I turn off the TV after this play session? And if you're playing online and, you can make a connection like that, or just say one nice thing to somebody, that's not staying, that's coming out on both sides of, the internet connection.
For sure. Yeah, I think those like chances to do that are so important, whether it's in a role like of the volunteering capacity or not. Like, when you extend support like that, whether you receive or extend support, like, you are both growing and becoming more resilient from that. Just the process of altruism, like getting outside of your head, even if it's not received, it's like you tried to make a positive impact. And right. I think the effects that like cannot be understated.
Yeah.
Overstated.
Yeah. So Drew, right now Streetlight is only in Florida. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
What would you like to see? How would you like to see Streetlight grow? What would you like to have in an ideal world? What is Streetlight in 5-10 years? So
yeah, I've thought a lot about this for sure. And I think that Streetlight is definitely a needed program. Especially at children's hospitals, or where you have those teenagers, kind of young adults, through so many different illnesses or conditions. That time of transition to adulthood is like so fraught with like negative outcomes if it's not like well supported. But I think beyond that, just the realization of like how hospitals do really isolate people, and it really affects teens and young adults who rely so essentially on their peer support group. I think trying to make a case for that is what the program is kind of heading towards now. So a lot of what I would want for the program now is definitely kind of based in trying to further ground the program in research. So now we are doing, we just launched an IRB study on player experiences in the gaming league, which involves more open-ended qualitative interviews about their experience, coupled with a survey that tries to get at their experience of the like functional components of the server, like did you use voice chat, text, did you get to meet other people, with different factors of peer, like social support, and how social support theory kind of groups those into like different aspects. Like a functional support would be like providing a need, like a service or a tangible good, which they can all be done in games, which is really cool. But it could be done other ways too, or informational, like you give advice, or emotional, like you let someone vent, or appraisal, like you reinforce that person's self-image, or just that belonging sense that you've given someone a sense that they belong here and they're part of a bigger community. We're really trying to get at, does this provide social support? We've done that a similar way in just looking at like Streetlight overall. And that study is concluded. We're kind of waiting to go through all the results with the research team now. But I think the next steps are trying to figure out how to prove Streetlight is more effective than no Streetlight. And that's a really complicated research to do, because you have to have a control group of where there's no Streetlight, and it has to be pretty comparable to the situation at Shands. So we're kind of in the brainstorming phase of it. A lot of it's facilitated through my classes, which I'm trying to make projects for it to look at like an efficacy study, or see like, do Streetlight patients report higher health-related quality of life outcomes or social support outcomes than patients who don't get Streetlight at the same hospital or at other hospitals? What do those trajectories look like over time or with different populations? But I think doing that, and if we can do it in a way that's like mimics a random controlled trial, that would be really, really impactful for stating our case and getting it implemented in other settings. And over the years, we've also tried to really like package Streetlight as well to like kind of prepare for that. But yeah, spreading to other hospitals, I think, is the ultimate goal, because we've seen how so impactful this program can be with patients who lack that social support, or it's at the hardest times in their lives. And as I start moving into public health, you just realize like there's probably so many other patients who are like exactly like the ones we've gotten to meet in Shands, who could totally benefit from this, and who could benefit others from this.
Right.
I mean, it's so cool watching patients get involved in the gaming league, and that's really opened up a big way for patients to get back to each other without even having to like go through the becoming a volunteer, or if they're not a UF student or whatever. I've seen some really tremendous just like showings of support, or how patients who've gone through so much like create a space for other patients to feel supported and feel heard. And watching that go from like someone getting support and then like giving it is really cool. And it's just really beautiful to like witness that momentum over and over again, to where I'm like, okay, I've lived the stories, like we need to get this in research.
And do you think that is the main barrier preventing the expansion to other hospitals? Is it research? Is it manpower? Is it funds? What do you think?
I think funding is probably number one, but research so supports funding, because I mean, any grants you're doing, a lot of them do have to be based in research. I would say those two are definitely key. And it's also just really important to be able to be at a hospital that's close to like a university of pre-med students who are highly motivated, who are ready to go into this often very emotional service commitment, both in terms of like it's incredibly emotional fulfilling, but it can also be very, very hard when you lose patients, or when you are up so close to that suffering. So you need to definitely have like a source for volunteers who are willing to give in this way. So yeah, those are kind of
that's an excellent idea, to get pre-med students involved. It's something that would be really, I think, up their alley and important, look good on resumes and things like that. But obviously more important than that, it's just a good thing to do.
Our first research paper was actually looking at volunteer experience, because that was, I think, as the program like started to tiptoe into research, that was kind of like we were able to get data most quickly without it's a lot harder to do research with patients who are in the hospital, obviously for logistical reasons and for like ethical stuff too. But that just showed really significant impacts with volunteers reporting just that it had really radically changed their perspectives on life and death, and on the human connection piece of just how important that is in living a good life, and their ability to talk about difficult things, their ability to talk about death in general.
Absolutely.
Program, and that was really cool to see too. I definitely felt that going through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. You are finding all these things out, and medicine and medical education are rearing towards this way at the same time, which I think is going to complement each other really nicely. I mean, in medical education, there's more emphasis now than ever before on, like I said, treating the whole patient and, you know, body, mind, and soul. And I have no doubt that that is going to just help Streetlight, you know, propel into the future and to expansion. You know, if there's ever any way I could help with, you know, getting, you know, some med students involvements, getting some doctor involvements, whatever it is, that is a really, really great things you're doing. Drew, if someone does want to get involved as a volunteer, or at the very least to support Streetlight, what's the best way for them to do that?
So our volunteering now is limited to volunteers at University of Florida. We're currently, you know, with the COVID situation, we are not accepting like new volunteers right now, just, you know, trying to understand like when we'll be back and what normal volunteering will look like again. But I would definitely recommend just checking us out on Facebook. We have we actively post on our Facebook page. That's Streetlight at UF Health, which I can send you the link for too. It'll probably be
awesome. Yeah, I'll put it in the description below.
And then our webpage, I can give you that too, which kind of goes in more in depth of not just like updates, but different parts of the program, different components of it, different stories, stuff like that, which kind of gives you a broad overview. And there's also some education materials on there too that kind of get at some of the like mission building stuff, and also the different concepts of like resilience and how we incorporate that into the program. And yeah, it definitely makes you think a lot. If you're gonna go read that stuff, definitely be ready to like contemplate life.
Yeah,
for a little bit.
Yeah.
There's some really cool stuff on there.
That sounds like a good exercise. Some contemplation is always good to squeeze in the day. Drew, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed talking with you and talking about Streetlight again. Streetlight Gaming League. You guys are doing important stuff, medically important stuff, not just, you know, important stuff. So it's really great. Go follow them. Go check out their website. Go contemplate. And as always, thank you for joining us here at Digital Games, where we explore how games have an impact. If you like what you saw, please hit like, hit subscribe. We want to show you more videos, more interviews, more Let's Plays, and we'll keep moving on and doing our thing. Until then, we'll see you next time. Game on. Thanks, everybody.